Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Husqvarna 562XP. Customer complaint is that it's low on power. A quick look inside the tank. There's no water in there. The fuel looks good. Filter looks good. We're just going to kind of rule out the possibility that the tank is contaminated with pond scum. So let's pop the hood on this bad boy and see what we got going on. Those fins on that cylinder really look dark, don't they? That's usually a sign that this thing's been running hot, or at least it did at some point. The air filter doesn't look terrible. I don't see any obvious problems. Let's look in the cylinder and make sure that this thing isn't scored. Where's my scrunch? It's kind of weird. The spark plug's not even tight. You know, maybe he put a new spark plug in here and just didn't tighten it down. Maybe he's trying to fix the problem with a plug. Quick break here. I'm going to look at the exhaust screen because I just had a thought that there's a possibility it had an air leak and maybe a bearing cage let loose on the crankshaft. And if it did, a lot of times you'll find parts of that bearing in the exhaust screen. But I didn't see anything. It looked clean. Spark plug was not fresh and new and just replaced, so I'm not sure why it was loose. This uses a smaller 10mm spark plug, so it's hard to get a good look in there with just a flashlight. So we're going to stick the camera in here and take a look. And so far it looks really good. We're going to turn the side camera on here and get a little better look at the intake side. Yeah, you can't complain about that. It looks really good. Alright, so we are going to hook this chainsaw up to the computer, and that'll give us some information as to whether or not there's any error codes stored in it. Now to hook it up, there's just a plug in here that we have to connect to, and then we connect that to this little box here, and then that little box gets connected to our computer. And this is a dealer only kind of thing here, so the way I got my monitor set up here, I can swing it around and do this right from the bench. Part of the information I need in order to connect to this machine or do updates on it is the part number that's on the ignition module. So that's why I'm pulling the starter off of here. But when I hooked it up to auto-tune on the computer, it told me that it had an error code 14. And one of the possibilities for getting that error code is to check the fuel lines, make sure there's no holes in them. I think the code itself is auto-tune has reached its maximum rich setting at high speed. So what it's saying is that auto-tune is not getting enough fuel to satisfy the engine. And if you look at the pressure gauge here, as I pressurize the fuel line, you'll see that it keeps dropping. We'll take a close look here at this line right where it connects to the carburetor. We can already see it's wet. But if we look close on the left-hand side of the line here, we'll put a little arrow in there. Watch that area. As I pressurize the line, it squirts a little bit of fuel. Right there. So there's a pinhole or a crack in the fuel line. And if the carburetor is sucking air instead of sucking fuel, we're going to get that lean condition or that situation where auto-tune cannot provide enough fuel. So there you go, we have found the problem. Now we just have to fix it. So we're going to go back looking in the tank. When I looked in here the first time, I saw that it had a nice clean filter on it, so we're going to harvest that and keep that. Now we need to get the old fuel line out. Right. Now there's a couple different ways to do this. I'm kind of stubborn. So instead of taking the time to loosen the fuel tank and the handle area from the crankcase of the saw, I'll take this one screw out and give me some flex, but I'm not unhooking the handle and opening up that gap more than I can get here. So I got to reach in there with needle nose and such to replace this line. So the line is preformed. You can see it in the bag sitting there on the bench. It's a preformed line, and it's kind of got a fitting where it passes through the fuel tank and it seals off. And then it's got a fitting where it passes through that tray underneath the carburetor. And it kind of snaps into that tray as well. So there's our line coming. We pulled it out of the bottom of the tray. Now we're going to pull it out of the tank. And it's in there pretty good. It's got to be in there good, because if it wasn't, then it would leak fuel. Just yank it out of there. There we go. Alright, we got our official Husqvarna fuel line. You got to put it in there the right way so that the filter hangs in a tank properly. And there is a flat spot, I believe, on that grommet right there, and you just line that up. If you were looking at the tank, you would see it's pretty obvious which way it goes in there. Now again, I'm doing this kind of the difficult way. I don't have a lot of room to work here. But I've done a few of these, and it's I don't mind doing it this way. Once you get the end of the line kind of close, you can pull it through the tank. And just be careful about how you pull on these lines. Now, I'm not afraid to pull on it with my hand because I don't have any sharp edges on my fingertips, right? The pliers does, though, and we don't want to put an extra hole in that line before we even get to hook it up to the saw. This is a little bit of a fumbly process, a lot less fumbly if you're, not too interested about making sure that it's captured on the camera. So once we have the line snapped into place, we can put our filter back on, and we're happy with that. Now the other end of the line has got to go up through the bottom of that tray, get snapped into place, and then get hooked to the carburetor. I'm shining the light in from the top through the hole that the line has to pass through to make it easy for me to see where the line has to come up from the bottom. Because if the light's shining through the hole, I can easily see where that line goes and push it up through the hole. Once it's through the hole, I just grab it and pull it through. Simple stuff. Now that line does get snapped into the bottom of that tray. So I'm going to use this pliers here just to open things up a little bit and take a look. As I stretch the fuel line, I'm just kind of pushing it in with my other finger and making sure it snaps into place. And you can confirm it by looking in from the top to see what's pulled through, if it's flush inside that tray. We'll get our screw put back in our anti-vibe mount before we forget. And we still have to put the fuel line on the carburetor. I don't know why this is such a fumbly job here, but looks like we got it. So what do we got left? Apparently we don't have much left, do we? So that's all I have for you on the Husqvarna 562XP fuel line replacement. Thanks for watching. Later. Come on, make it go vroom.